What's going on, guys? Today I want to talk a little bit about this new James Gunn movie, Superman. This is James Gunn's first major release after being named co-CEO of DC Studios along with Peter Safran. Gunn is, of course, the director of the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy as well as 2021's The Suicide Squad. Now, it's no secret that the announcement and build-up to this release has been a little chaotic, as this movie marks the beginning of a new direction for DC after Zack Snyder's failed DCEU. Many fans have been voicing their displeasure with a lot of different things, ranging from the lighter tone of the film to Superman's new suit, with some even actively campaigning online for this movie to fail. Now, I think that no matter how anybody feels about Zack Snyder's movies or Henry Cavill, I think that if you are a Superman fan, then you should really want this movie to succeed no matter what. However, I do think there is legitimate concern around how well James Gunn's directing style will lend itself to a movie like Superman. A lot of his films up to this point have been sillier, lighthearted stories about much lesser or even unknown characters. But this is easily the most iconic and recognizable character that James Gunn has ever been put in charge of. I never actually ended up watching the Richard Donner Superman movies until I was actually in my 20s, and they are legitimately my favorite superhero movies aside from the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy. The biggest thing I love about Reeves' portrayal is this idea that Superman is a friend above everything else. He's an alien who has the power to do anything he wants, but the thing that he wants to do more than anything is to help people.
What does Superman represent to people?
A friend, and that's what people really need most. They don't need a strong arm, one-man vigilante force. They need a friend. We're living in an age when people are basically afraid of contact with each other. They're afraid. People live in cities. They don't even know their neighbors. They're afraid to go out in the street. Something might happen to them. Basically, technology is against you. Life is overwhelming. Even the bank doesn't know who you are. And it's like, we run around scared a lot, particularly those of us who live in cities. And America was founded on the virtues of a helping hand, of going 5 miles to lend your neighbor a donkey or whatever he needed. And I think that is that kind of virtue that's at the bottom. That's the heart of Superman. The genuine love of people, and that you always know he's your friend.
This is what embodies the character of Superman, and I think that it is the biggest thing that the Zack Snyder movies get wrong. I think that Man of Steel and Batman v Superman can be pretty entertaining at times, but I just don't think that Zack Snyder truly understood the meaning of the character of Superman. After the botched release of 2017's Justice League, it seemed clear that DC wanted to start moving in a new direction. And now, 8 years later, we finally have the film, and I gotta say, I think that it is truly something special. One of the first things that jumped out to me was just how comic booky this movie really feels. Rather than giving us a big drawn-out origin story like we've seen many times before, Gunn decides to drop us right into this world of characters as though we're just picking up an issue of the comic book. We get to see a lot of iconic Superman locations like the Fortress of Solitude and the Daily Planet. The movie moves at a very fast pace and quickly introduces a lot of new characters like Mr. Terrific and Guy Gardner, Hawkgirl. This can sometimes be off-putting to casual viewers, but I don't think you need to be a big comic book reader or know a ton of backstory here. They're mostly just there to make the world feel a little bit more lived in. There were also concerns with adding Krypto the Superdog to this movie, but I think he's just another fun addition to the film, and he doesn't really have much of a big impact on the plot. David Cornsweet finally feels like the Superman we've been waiting for. He approaches every scene with this youthful sense of hope and optimism. From the start of the film, he's letting out good gollies like he's some kid that grew up in the 1950s. He's someone who always sees the good in everybody and places great value on all life, saving people, animals, and even aliens. I also think Rachel Brosnahan does a great job as Lois Lane. She really embodies this hotshot reporter who is always willing to ask the tough questions to expose the truth. Her personality leads her to be very careful and cautious, and I think that this really plays well against Cornsweet's Superman, who is always so endearing and trusting of everybody. I actually think Nicholas Holt's Lex Luthor is my favorite live-action version of the character. He's a billionaire who's driven by jealousy and insecurity, and it always shows with how angry he gets anytime he's outsmarted or outplayed. He is genuinely a bad person here, and he does a lot of things that genuinely make you dislike him and want to see him eventually get defeated. Another part of this movie that I really like is a particular scene with Jonathan and Martha Kent. It's the scene that really humanizes Clark and reminds me a lot of why I love Superman in the first place. So the main plot of this movie revolves around this overseas conflict that Superman has recently put a stop to. Everybody seems to have a different perspective on Superman about who he is, what his place is, and what his authority is on all of the world's problems. I really love the interview scene in this movie because it really shows how different Lois and Clark are in the way that they view Superman and his actions and the impact that they have on the world. Lois is somebody who is much more calculated and believes that Superman should play along with the world's leaders. But Clark, on the other hand, is so naive and headstrong that he simply acts whenever he believes that something is wrong. Now, I will say this is a James Gunn movie at the end of the day, and with that, you're gonna get a movie with a lot of silly one-liners and one-off jokes. I'm personally at the point where I don't really find a lot of humor in these superhero movies to be that funny anymore. It is something that is also present here, but I don't think it is as distracting as it has been in some of James Gunn's other films. But without trying to reveal too much, I'll wrap this up just by saying once again that I think this was a great movie. Superman is a character that I think a lot of filmmakers have struggled to adapt in the modern era. While I don't think it was a perfect movie, the biggest takeaway from me is that we finally have a director in James Gunn that understands the core value of what makes Superman, Superman. If I'm going out of 10, I'd probably give this movie about an 8. This looks like a much brighter and more hopeful future for DC, and I'm very excited to see what comes next. If you're still here, I want to thank you so much for watching. I look forward to doing a lot more movie and TV content in the future. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.